Eccoci qua ragazzi sul canale di nuovo, oggi veramente problemi su problemi, non si capisce cosa sta succedendo, veramente incredibile, veramente
Maestro,
assurdo.
maestro sei all'oscuro, ti invitiamo
Sì,
di
mi
farti...
piace ragazzi,
sì.
oggi
Oggi,
veramente puntata allucinante, ma questo non mancherà mai, ci siamo di nuovo,
ok
i
ragazzi,
problemi ci
grazie a tutti per aver richiesto ovviamente i My Dying Bride sul canale, siamo riusciti ad
e
avere
anche
oggi.
Liban.
Ti sei mutato maestro? Abbiamo oggi Aaron che ci sta raggiungendo nell'anticamera del nostro programma. Maestro, ti invito a
Oggi
girare col telefono l'inquadratura in modo tale che si vede bene il tuo
sì, sto
faccione bello.
facendo...
In ogni caso, ringraziamo tutte le persone che stanno
Eccoci.
seguendo dalla Grecia. Hi, welcome to the Calice Nero. Aaron will join us in 40 seconds. Meanwhile, we are doing some announcement for the next episode, as always, guys. Ciao Tony, grazie per il supporto. So,
Ciao
guys, we
carissimo.
have My Dying Bride. This is the part one, actually, and I'm waiting for the maestro preparing himself because we have a lot of things to say in this live stream, a lot of things to ask to Aaron, which is joining really quick in our channel. By the way, if you like the video, share and subscribe. We got a shit ton of news about the new live streams and the new episode of the channel, but without wasting another time, maestro, chiamiamo Aaron My Damn Bride. Hello, Aaron.
Okay.
Welcome to the Calice Nero.
Good evening.
Hello
Good evening.
Aaron.
Hello.
How are
Good
you?
to be here.
Hope you're doing well and really stoked about this episode of tonight. I don't know the difference of time zone, but now in Italy are 9 p.m. So we hope to not make it too much late for the people that maybe want
It's
to watch.
absolutely fine.
But as always, guys, the episode will stay online even after this live stream. So in case you catch this live stream late, you can rewatch it whenever you want. Okay, Aaron. As always, I pass the word to my buddy here, Alan the Maestro, for the first question. And our Greek friends, and hello from Napoli and Sardinia, and also we have plenty of places connected at the same time. So thanks for the support, guys. Maestro, la prima domanda a te. First question, maestro, in Italian. Vai.
Allora, la prima domanda, Aaron, è una domanda abbastanza filosofica. Come possiamo far entrare i Maidenbridge all'interno della filosofia letteraria, ma anche musicale e artistica, con degli scrittori con appunto una tecnica di scrittura molto complessa, molto difficoltosa nel leggerla? Quanto i Maidenbridge potrebbero essere un libro scritto in maniera abbastanza non semplice per chi appunto ascolta l'arte musicale, perché Marian Bridge non fanno musica, fanno arte.
Okay, so the first question actually is have multiple layers. So we start to make one step. So because it's pretty interesting what the maestro asked to you, Aaron. It's about the philosophical aspect of My Damn Bride. So he asked you if you have some philosophical reference, some artistic and cultural reference, poetry, books, stuff like that, and how was your inspiration when you research some authors that maybe can be effective in the process of the composition of your music?
Well, I was first introduced to, I guess, fine writing and poetry when I was at school. Actually, when I was at school in Germany, my father was in the army, and so my schooling was in Germany mostly. And I was terrible at maths. I couldn't understand numbers at all, but words I loved. And when I got to start to learn English literature, that's when things really opened for me, and I realized I could really start to devour books. I just loved the written word. And back at school, we had to learn things like Shakespeare and Keats and Byron, these sort of old classic English authors. And I loved that stuff. It was dated even back then, but there's something, I think, quite romantic about the old classics. And I loved that stuff. And I've since bought all the books and have read them all. And I didn't really realize that poetry would be something I would be using after school. I just enjoyed it while I was at school. And it was only obviously many years later when we decided to form My Dying Bride that I realized, okay, the poetry I learnt at school and the poetry I read at home of my own free will, that can now be used as lyrics for My Dying Bride. And it was just wonderful. I was never going to learn to play an instrument. I thought, I'm going to be the vocalist. I'm going to be the songwriter. I'm going to be the one who pens all the words. And so from the very beginning of My Dying Bride, from, you know, the original demo tape, I really let that poetical side of me come out. And even though there were bands like Death and Bathory and Slayer, and they were all singing about, you know, Satan and hell and slash and blood and guts and all that crazy stuff, which was great fun, I wanted to write about something with a bit more depth and a bit more feel, something that people would read and maybe want to read a bit more. Not lyrics that are on one base level, but lyrics that required you to look further into them if you wanted to understand the meaning. And I've carried that with me through every single record. And a lot of fans love the lyrics that I write, which is great. And I find writing quite therapeutic. There's always words going around in my head. And if I don't get the words out and write them down, then I think I'll go crazy. I don't want all those words running around in my head. So I write all the time. And I've written hundreds of poems that have never been published. And of course, I think we've written 150, 200 My Dying Bride songs now. And they are a bit like poetry as well. And I feel I have something to say and I have to say it. Whether the public hears it or reads it, it doesn't matter. I am compelled to write. I am urged to write by my own sanity, I suppose. And I have to go back and thank those early old English, the dead poets from back in the day, Byron and Keats, because they opened the door. And since then, I've bought hundreds of books of poetry, modern stuff, even stuff like Nick Cave, who you wouldn't really associate with poetry, but some of his writing is quite poetical and it's very thought-provoking. And I've been to see lots of poets live, and there's loads of them, but I can't help. I'll never forget those early days, those old classics. They will always stay with me. As good as poets are today, Simon Armitage is our poet laureate and he does a wonderful job. But I still prefer the old stuff. It's just me. Maybe because I'm an old man, I prefer older stuff. Contemporary poetry is fine. There's a place for it. But I hark back to the past. And that's kind of the era I write about. You rarely see in my lyrics references to guns, cars, aeroplanes. Modern day themes are not contained within my lyrics because I think I want my lyrics and my poems to be timeless. So if you introduce something like a car or a telephone or an email, you automatically put the reader in an era. And I don't want that. I want people to read the words that I've written and be transported to anywhere they want, anywhere. And so I keep the writing almost neutral. And I certainly don't introduce any contemporary elements because that will break the whole dream, because poetry can be seen as a dreamlike state. And that's how I like it. Yes, I know it's a bit old-fashioned, but I like it. And I'm going to continue to write in this fashion. It's me. It's who I am. And it's what I want to do.
Okay, perfect. The huge answer also. I was thinking about when you said when you write lyrics. I was recalling with the lyrics that I read about your music and try to be in this process by myself. What you said, the fact, and it was really interesting what you said, because you said that you have tons of poems that were never released, but they'll actually be part of the lyrics and on the part of the songs of your art. And since also the maestro stated that in his opinion, Mind and Bride are not only music, but also you make art. He said this sentence: Mind and Bride makes art. If you need to compare your music with, we talked about poetry, but I want to also ask you about painters and paintings. It's of the visual art in general. Can you compare in such a way, using, of course, the word that you use to describe your own way and your own preference with an artist, maybe a painter, maybe a canvas, something like that, just to complete this cycle of about art and Might and Bride together? You have some suggestion to?
Yeah, again, when My Dying Bride formed, everybody's album cover was full of blood and guts and skeletons, and you know, and that was all fine. That's what heavy metal is all about. And then every now and again, someone would release an album cover of an old classic masterpiece, and Bathory did that on, I think, the fourth album, and then I think for Bloodfire Death, I think, and Hammerheart were huge oil paintings, and very unlike their sort of satanic black metal look from previous. And I love that shift from fairly simple black metal to this rich tapestry of amazing artwork, because those sort of paintings, they tell a story, even though you don't need to know the title of the image, you don't need to know the painter. You can stand there and you can look at the detail, and it's wonderful. You can almost make up your own mind, your own vision of what's happening in front of you. And I really thought that was a great idea. And again, I knew that when My Dying Bride would create something visual, we would put a lot of work and effort into it. We're not just going to grab anything that looks cool, because it has to mean something to us, and it has to reflect the music that people are going to listen to. If the artwork doesn't fit the music, it just doesn't quite work. It doesn't feel like a unit, whereas I think our visuals work in harmony with our sound, and I think that's really important. And the artist we approached right at the beginning was Dave McKean. Now, he's not an artist you would associate with the classics. Dave McKean doesn't do old oil paintings that are hanging on dusty museums. He is very much a contemporary artist. And I liked his work, and I never thought he would want to do our record cover. And Peace Hill Records reached out to him. This was before the internet, of course.
Oh, okay.
And somehow Dave McKean got back and he said, yes, I would love to do it. So Dave McKean did our first EP, Symphonia Infernus. And then he also did our first album, As the Flower Withers. And they were marvelous. And they were completely different to what other bands were doing at the time. I loved Celtic Frost. And To Megatherion is an amazing cover, Dethroned Emperor. But then things started to change, and I saw a lot of bands moving away from the typical heavy metal ideas and trying something a bit more artistic. And now anything goes. In fact, recently, even in My Dying Bride, we've been playing with Midjourney, this new piece of software which AI generates the images, and it's a lot of fun. But it has a sort of signature to it, and which, if everybody uses it, there'll be no work for artists ever again. But it comes up with some pretty impressive images. And we've used various artists in the past, all alive, because although I admired what Bathory did with the Hammerheart image and Bloodfire Death, I did go to museums and I did look at these huge 10-meter oil paintings where there's 1,000 things happening. And I thought about using maybe part of an image from something like that. But it's been done quite a lot of times, and it's not cheesy, but I couldn't really find anything that was really good, because a lot of the other bands have already used the best stuff. So
okay, yeah, your approach was more personal, just to find your own identity, because of course Battery did it with the paintings, but when I saw a cover of the early Madame Bridge, I was impressed not only by the music but also the whole package, the visual element. So I thought that okay, this artwork is made for the release, but I think that fits
that's right,
100% for the
I
release.
would send my lyrics to the artist, and I would say to the artist, read all my lyrics and use that as your starting block. Use that as your canvas. Create something around the words. And that's how we've done it from the demo. You know, we've worked with the artists, and it's been a fantastic relationship. And we've loved most of the artists we've worked with. We've worked with on a number of occasions. In fact, the very last piece of artwork was for, the EP. What was the EP called? Macabre Cabaret. And it was created by an Italian guy. And I'm hoping to work with him again. I've forgotten his name now, which is terribly rude of me. But it's on, just get the record and check the name. He's a wonderful artist, and I'm hoping to work with him again. And again, I will send him the words and hope that he will read the words and sometimes read between the lines. And he will feel something which will help him create the visuals for the next record. And I think that's important to work with your artist. It's so easy to just grab a piece of artwork from anywhere and stick it on your cover because it looks cool. But to have something created for you based on the work that you've done, I think is fantastic.
Yeah, also this kind of freedom for the artist is better in my own opinion, because the musician cannot let the artist that make the covers to be influenced by their own opinion, but they create something unique for you based on the lyrics. And I think that is the most impressive and cool things to do for an artist that makes the cover art. And also this closed our first chapter of interview, when we put together art, literature, and music. In this case, your music. So I was really impressed about the way you answered me. Also, this behind the scenes stuff about your previous release. Of course, guys, I'm now translating for the Italian people, but I'm
Adesso
not
traduciamo, se no
the whole Alan, the whole things 20 minutes. Don't worry, I'm resuming what you said, and then I will pass again my word to the maestro for the next question. And thank you, Aaron. Very inspiring answer for this. We love this kind of answer. We love when the artist explains himself 100% in these episodes, in this podcast, because we love to go in depth and research and be richer than before this interview. So thank you, Aaron, for your answer. By the way, I'm now translating it, and the banner appears on the screen. So guys, stay with us. Some pause for Aaron and some work for me, actually. Allora, praticamente intanto salutiamo Corazzata Valdemone, che li avremo anche noi.
Ce l'avremo il 20 di ottobre. Il 20 di ottobre, sì, dalle 21 alle 22, sì, perché il 28 esce il nuovo disco. E poi lui ci sarà, Corazzata Valdemone parte 2, ci sarà a dicembre, ma non diciamo niente perché si sta tutto preparando, ormai ci siamo quasi.
Caldamente, un progetto veramente merita tanto. Poi abbiamo Sorim da Bucarest, Romania.
Bellissimo. Welcome, Sorim.
E poi i ragazzi da Atene, dalla Grecia. Allora, abbiamo parlato in questi primi 20 minuti abbiamo fatto una sorta di primo capitolo, Maiden in Bride, con letteratura e con arte. Nella seconda parte si è parlato delle cover art, ma nella prima parte siamo andati un po' sul background di Aaron, che parla della sua attitudine verso i classici, come per esempio Byron, ha fatto un esempio, ha fatto un nome. Lui ha fatto la scuola in Germania perché il padre faceva parte dell'esercito. La volontà che stava sia all'interno delle cover art che all'interno appunto dell'attitudine, quindi dell'ispirazione era quello di differenziarsi un po' da quello che facevano le altre band. Vedi Bathory, che ha iniziato con una certa estetica, poi si è evoluto, ha preso dei dipinti per quanto riguarda le cover art. Vedi invece per esempio Slayer o altri che parlavano di Satana, dell'inferno, eccetera eccetera. Invece lui ha voluto sempre mettersi in gioco scrivendo testi, cantando, ma tutto facendo una cosa diversa, quindi l'unione della poesia e della letteratura. Ha una preferenza verso la letteratura classica rispetto ai contemporanei ed ha sempre utilizzato la letteratura come parte integrante del suo processo compositivo di liriche. Dalle liriche parte anche tutto il suo discorso per le cover art. Ha avuto l'occasione di lavorare con tantissimi artisti, soprattutto anche grazie all'etichetta che ha prodotto i primi album e i primi EP, che comunque la Peaceville Records è riuscito ad andare attraverso degli artisti importantissimi che hanno poi realizzato le cover, e loro come hanno fatto per esempio dal primo, faccio un esempio, non dalla prima demo ma anche dalla prima demo, per esempio se guardiamo, faccio un esempio, la Towards the Sinister per esempio, fino alle altre release, passando per As the Flowers Withers, oppure The Trash Naked Limbs, Tour de Lose the Swans, le cover art che hanno sempre fatto parte dei Mind and Bride sono sempre qualcosa di artistico e creato apposta. Quindi loro guardano l'arte in maniera complementare, la letteratura in maniera complementare alla musica. Spesso hanno lavorato anche con un ragazzo italiano che purtroppo lui non si ricorda il nome, e lui di solito manda proprio i testi all'artista. Attraverso i testi diventano la base solida per poi andare a sviluppare il dipinto, l'artwork.
Aspetta, ma artista italiano cosa intende? Come
artista italiano che ha realizzato la cover, però non si ricorda chi. Hanno lavorato anche con un artista italiano.
Per caso Liverani?
Non lo so.
Aspetta, indago.
Ho detto purtroppo non
Allora
si ricorda.
indago.
Prima di mentre indaghi, maestro, facciamo la seconda domanda, oppure la fai tu, la faccio io, come vogliamo fare?
Ok, dai, comincio a fare la seconda domanda. Aaron, allora, quando entriamo nel mondo Mind and Bridge, possiamo decifrare che l'arte musicale, quindi la batteria, quindi la voce di Aaron, quindi le chitarre, il violino, tutti anche gli strumenti ultra artistici, perché è proprio qualcosa di poetico. Come possiamo decifrare i Mind and Bridge all'interno di una intelaiatura di un quadro? Ma non mi soffermo solo sulla tela, mi soffermo proprio sul legno. Quale legno potrebbe essere quello perfetto per posare sulla tela del legno? Quindi i Mind and Bridge, quale legno potrebbero essere per inglobare la tela?
Okay, so the next question from the maestro is actually about the chemistry and the getting in a band, and also the songwriting process and the composition process. He compares also using your own words during the past answers of our past questions. He said, "For me, Mind and Bride are like a painting. So every color on the right spot and all the color together makes a huge art, a huge painting that I love so much, because it was really impressive in my opinion." Those are the words of the maestro. He wants to know some behind the scenes and some how can translate in English? The creative process and about inspiration. What inspires you about the everyday life, and what from your life got into what you write and what you play as musician?
Well, you do write about your own experiences, of course, and we generally will focus on the more negative of aspects of life, because pop bands sing about the fun stuff, and we're not a pop band, so we sing about the less fun stuff, and the slightly more thought-provoking things, topics. And we've had a terrible time in the last 6 or 7 years, and I think that was reflected in the last 2 releases we've done. And every time you have a low part in your life, because I'm a writer, I have to write about it. A lot of people will either lock it up in their head and it will drive them crazy, or they'll find some other way of exorcising these thoughts. And for me, I either create artwork or I write. And sometimes if you're actually living quite a nice life and you're not having enough experiences of the negative sort to inspire you to write, then that's when I dig out the poetry books. I've got loads and loads of poetry books. I don't necessarily have a specific favorite artist at the moment because I'm reading so much at the moment. In fact, I had the best bargains ever recently. I went to a shop that was closing down and I got 18 books of poetry for £3, which was like Christmas.
Yes.
Some are better than others, of course. But I love that stuff, you know, and I read it and I read it. Some of it stays and some of it just goes immediately. It depends how you feel. And some of it hangs around long enough to just inspire maybe the next set of lyrics for the band. And the lyrics take quite a long time to write because the music comes first. Andrew and the gang write amazingly together. Andrew's probably one of the best heavy metal songwriters around today. When he delivers the music, that's an inspiration as well, because it's always epic. And when you listen to that music, and I have a notebook, of course, with all the ideas in. Then I'm listening to the music. I've got the notebook out, and you can feel songs start to develop. And the lyrics can take many hours to write. And sometimes I have a glass of wine or 2 or 3, because I feel that when you have some alcohol, it just opens little doors of your mind that are closed during the day. Because during the daytime, we have to live our lives. We have to act like adults. We have to pay taxes, and we have to do boring shit. In the evening, and I only ever write in the evening, when it's time to relax, there's no emails, there's no telephone calls, there's nothing on TV. Then you open a bottle of wine, you put the music on, and you start to write. And sometimes you can write in such a way that you know, I'm not going to sing these lyrics. This is going to be a poem. And I write and write and write. Even though My Dying Bride's music is still playing, I write and write and write. And it's not a wasted night if I haven't created a lyric, because I've created something that needed creating. And so the following night, I will write to the music again. And you can feel if it's going to be a lyric, because at some point you're going to sing these words, and you write differently if you're going to sing the words. And it can take a couple of nights to get the lyrics correct. And some of my songs have a defined narrative. They have a beginning, a middle, and an end. They have characters drifting through the storyline, and there's something to say about them. But I also like to write in a more abstract fashion, where I'm writing what's stuck in here, and it's got to come out. And when it comes out, sometimes it doesn't necessarily make sense. It doesn't read A, B, C, D, E. It doesn't have to. It just has to be a passionate way of expressing how you feel at that moment. And so some of the lyrics, people might read them and think, okay, it looks good, but I haven't got a clue what it means. That doesn't matter, because you can then interpret those lyrics in your own way. Now, I know what I'm writing about, but I don't always tell people what I'm writing about. So sometimes when we do interviews and someone says, hey, Aaron, tell me what The Cry of Mankind is about. And I just think, no, well, I could.
Yes, because you want that the people are immersed in the music and the lyrics, so they can make their own interpretation of what they're reading.
Because if I explain my version of The Cry of Mankind, I will destroy thousands of other people's versions of The Cry of Mankind. And I don't want to do that. They have their feelings about that song. I have my feelings about that song. And we're all right. Nobody's wrong. And that's how I like to write.
Also, is the beauty of the music in this case, because when we got, for example, a book, a movie, the plot is there. We know the plot, we know the story, but about music, we have our own story, and maybe, I don't know, maybe from an interpretation of your lyrics, someone can write his own and he can start his own stuff. So it's good when we have like those kind of things that going on between mind, heart, and also the feeling. And the feeling is important, in our opinion, when we read lyrics and listen to music. So this kind of interpretation of, okay, I have my own meaning, but I let people to have his own, is really the best things of connect with the music, because we have our own life. Everyone is different. Luckily, I'm saying, in a society that wants everyone be the same, we are different person, different feelings, different human beings, but we can have different vision, even on the same song. So it's really cool. This fact is very cool, because we can have basically 1,000 of possibilities, and endless possibilities. And I want to also ask to you, and also translate the second part of the Maestro question. Have you had the chance to discuss with your fan or someone outside the band about his own vision, and maybe that vision that he told you was interesting to maybe pop up something and make you starting another things and be inspired from other people?
When we meet people on tour, and if we're lucky enough to have time to socialize with the fans, which we quite often do, and we talk about music and lyrics, and they will say, oh, by the way, this particular song means this to me for some personal reason. And then they explain things, and I think that's a better idea than my original idea.
Okay.
And you think, wow, that's amazing. You should be a writer. You should write this stuff down. People don't realize how creative they can be when they really put their heart and soul into something. So yes, there have been experiences where people have told me about my own lyrics, but have drawn their own picture, and it's completely different to my picture, and often it's better. Not always. Sometimes, it's just different. And I think that's wonderful, because, I've written songs like A Blue Lotus, which is a vampire song, and it tells a story of a vampire doing its thing. There's no interpretation. That's the way it goes. It has a defined narrative, start, end. But it's the others that actually prefer writing, because I've got something to say. But sometimes, if I'm writing something that I know is very personal, and it's something, I can't just come out and say it. I can't say exactly how I feel, because that will leave me vulnerable. So I write it in a fashion that allows me to express my feelings, but I've disguised it in poetry. And then I feel I'm able to release it to the public, because that's my thought, that's my heart, that's my energy, that's my bleeding soul. But you don't understand it. But I had to write it. And I'm sorry you can't understand it. But if you understood it in the same way how I wrote it, it would destroy me. I can't express my emotions to everybody all the time. It would be too much. It's too much. So I disguise it. And I know there are some songs that I can't sing live because they're too emotional for me. And I don't like playing live anyway, because quite a lot of the songs I sing live are personal and very emotional. That's why, if you see me on stage, I don't know where I am. I don't know who I am. I'm lost in my own chaos. And gigs are very difficult. They're very, very difficult because you have to stand in front of hundreds, sometimes thousands of people who you don't know and open your heart to them. And it's really, really difficult to do that. So I have to disguise it in flamboyant words. But I still get the original painful feeling. So I really do not like being on stage at all. My favorite part of being on stage is when I say, good night.
Okay. And just to complete the question of the maestro, he compares you. He said, "Graziano, please tell to Aaron that I compare my Dying Bride as a wood type, the wood, the forest, the trees."
Okay.
But Aaron needs to tell us which kind of wood he would like to compare my Dying Bride. So if you can transform my Dying Bride to a kind of wood. Which kind of wood you would pick? I don't know. Ash, maple, I don't know.
No, it would have to be the old English oak tree.
Ah, okay.
So we are still lucky in this country. There are some oak trees that are 1,000 years old. They're as wide as a house. They're as high as a skyscraper, and they've got millions of branches, and they look ancient because they are ancient. They've outlived kings and queens. And for me, when you see one of these classic oak trees, it feels so British, so English, so magnificent, so old and so historical. And in some ways, My Dying Bride has an older feel to us. As I mentioned, I don't sing about contemporary subjects. Our artwork won't feature skyscrapers and aeroplanes or anything like that. It has to be timeless. And old oak trees and indeed new oak trees are timeless.
Okay, perfect. Actually, when I visited London some years ago, I was really looking forward that typical British, old British setting, and I think that the oak trees is perfect because when I say when I'm trying to imagine myself having it because in Italy we have plenty other trees and stuff, and it was okay. He said oak tree. It's perfect because it's so British. The oak tree, in my opinion, is so British. So I don't know if I got the point, but I was very interested about this attitude. Actually, it's good when we listen an artist, a band, and we had the chance to go in depth and explore more about their own stuff and their stuff that they put in the music. So it was really interesting. By the way, Aaron, I know that with the translation I try to make the most justice as possible to your answer and to be the most accurate possible into the translation because I think that people need to know every details about your answer. So again, as before, some pause for you guys. Just before the translation, if you want to make your own question to Aaron, don't be shy and write down below. We were really happy to read your own question. Ok ragazzi, traduciamo l'enorme mole di lavoro di Aaron. Allora, gli abbiamo chiesto, il maestro gli ha chiesto se potessero essere insieme i vari pezzi, i vari strumenti dei My Dying Bride, se potessero essere un dipinto. E lui ha spiegato in maniera molto pratica, andando pure ad andare oltre la domanda, ma a mettersi nella questione delle ispirazioni, perché noi abbiamo chiesto quali sono le ispirazioni, le volontà, le situazioni. E praticamente il dipinto è qualcosa che comunque è come quelli che si guardano nei musei, magari anche un po' impolverati, ma comunque evocativi. Per quanto riguarda invece la questione dell'ispirazione, comunque lui si rifà comunque a tutta una estetica britannica, inglese, vecchia. Lui non parlerà mai di cose contemporanee. La visione è comunque qualcosa di immerso nel passato, comunque qualcosa di molto personale. Molte volte si trova molto spesso a guardare in faccia questa realtà e descrive delle tematiche che poi possono essere interpretate in maniera diversa. Lui ha un modo di scrivere molto particolare. Alcune canzoni hanno una struttura molto semplice, A, B, C, D, per esempio, questa consecutio temporum, no? dall'inizio alla fine. Altri sono molto più intrecciate, altri hanno dei significati più diciamo compatti, altri sono più a libera interpretazione. Molto spesso, ritrovandosi coi fan, si trova comunque a guardare attraverso le diverse interpretazioni, e lui odia quando gli chiedono i significati delle sue canzoni nell'intervista, non perché non le voglia spiegare, ma perché comunque vuole che tutte le persone abbiano anche la loro interpretazione, perché molto
Deve
spesso
parlare una parte intima con varie sfumature
sì.
artistiche.
Molto spesso dalle loro diciamo, dai loro racconti può nascere qualcosa di nuovo. Infatti, per esempio, è capitato, diceva che durante in tour dei fan gli hanno spiegato la loro visione su una determinata canzone, e loro gli è piaciuto talmente tanto come spiegazione che hanno adottato anche, tra virgolette, quella come spiegazione di pezzo, no? Quando gli si chiedono le liriche e le cose. E soprattutto anche questa situazione dei pezzi, dell'ispirazione, delle liriche. Lui molto spesso si trova a fare queste cose di sera, con un bicchiere di vino, con la musica, e scrive, e dice: anche se perdo tanto tempo, in realtà non perdo tempo, perché comunque ho qualcosa da dire, ho qualcosa da creare. Quindi anche lì abbiamo parlato anche dell'ispirazione, e dice anche che attraverso qualche goccetto di vino si aprono delle porte nella sua mente che non possono essere aperte durante il giorno, perché siamo troppo impegnati a fare le cose da adulti, dice lui. Per quanto invece concerne la questione del legno, proprio perché si rimanda alla questione della vecchia Inghilterra, del vecchio setting, io ho anche spiegato che, avendo visitato Londra qualche anno fa, veramente mi andavo a cercare tutti questi posti così. Lui ci ha spiegato che tipo una biblioteca stava chiudendo, lui per solo £3 si è comprato un sacco di libri che poi ha utilizzato, ha letto, ha scritto, e le sue scritture avvengono attraverso sempre una prosa, per poi diventare parte delle canzoni. La cosa molto bella è stata quella che alcuni pezzi non riesce manco a spiegare, perché sono troppo personali, troppo emozionali, e lui odia anche farli dal vivo. Molti non riesce manco a suonarli, proprio perché sono troppo d'impatto, perché gli ricordano sempre, anche se sono passati gli anni, quell'episodio particolare che hanno poi reso la genesi del pezzo. Infatti lui, per esempio, ha parlato anche della situazione dal vivo, di come si senta fuori luogo, e di come per lui la migliore parte della giornata è quella di dire alle persone buonanotte e di terminare il concerto. Non riesce troppo a stare sul palco, ma il suo modo di stare sul palco, un po' così estraniato, secondo me è anche parte dell'immagine, del modo di fare My Dying Bride, che comunque è stato sempre diverso rispetto agli altri gruppi.
Ma se invece vogliamo portare i My Dying Bride in una cattedrale dove vi sono degli strumenti a fiato, quindi strumenti che devono scegliere My Dying Bride, che deve scegliere Aaron, però come si può dire, degli strumenti molto intimi, molto riservati, quasi zero live. Quindi quale sarebbe la cattedrale perfetta per assemblare il reparto artistico compositivo dei My Dying Bride, e allo stesso tempo quali sono gli strumenti che vorrebbe provare a inserire all'interno dei My Dying Bride a fiato, ok? E allo stesso tempo qual è il disco che vorrebbe portare Aaron in prima persona all'interno di un museo?
Ok, prima di farci questa traduzione, intanto salutiamo Veronica Hera degli Starting Fire. Anzi, facciamo così proprio.
Grandissima, che avremo nel canale, grandissima Vera.
There
Un
is
abbraccio.
a band from Italy, actually, Starting Fire. They said, "Good evening, everyone. Madam Bride, you are an amazing inspiration for us. Love and respect. We are great fans. Thank you, Calice Nero, for this interview. Actually, thanks Aaron for being part.
No, perché salutiamo Veronica, infatti mi ha scritto in privato e mi ha detto assolutamente ci devo essere, grandissimo,
guys,
un abbraccio.
go to
Vabbè,
support Starting Fire. We will have also
e poi vi faremo
them
tutto
on the
ascoltare
channel.
playlist, video
Okay, a lot
interviste, veramente
of questions
bellissimi.
from Aaron, but we have only one from the maestro.
Okay.
Marton, Dick, Sorin, be patient. After our question,
Un abbraccio a tutti.
your own question to Aaron. Aaron, the maestro, which is the main, is the maestro for a reason, because he invented the setting and a special environment, in his opinion, for My Dying Bride. He said, Graziano, please ask to Aaron, what about having their concert in a cathedral? And also, if they have to pick some new instrument to be merged with the instrument and that they already have,
organo, ad
guitar,
esempio.
drums, he said organ or some particular flute and stuff. How those new instruments can be part of My Dying Bride, and if the setting and the environment of a cathedral is good for your music, and what do you think about it?
I think it would be very noisy in a cathedral unless we did.
The reverb will be not good, but
people have been speaking about like an unplugged show, an acoustic version of My Dying Bride, and we have thought about it, and we are still thinking about it. And I think an environment like a church or a cathedral would work very well. And obviously, we already have a violin player, and we used the wonderful Joe Quayle on cello in our current music. And I think if we were to do a show in such an architectural dream as a cathedral, then we would employ more strings, because the strings, I think, are timeless. And Joe knows other talented musicians. And if we really put a lot of hard work into it, it could happen. And we have, as I say, we've spoken about it, and it may happen. There's no concrete plans, but it is possible.
Some ideas are going around. You start to talk and think about maybe an unplugged version of My Dying Bride. Why not?
Yeah, in Halifax, where I live, there is it's a minster, but it's very black. It's a great looking building, and they already have shows in there, live performances. So we effectively already have a venue waiting. We just need to learn how to create My Dying Bride songs without distortion pedals and Marshall amplification. Because obviously, I'm not a guitar player. I don't know how easy it is to convert huge crushing riffs into an acoustic guitar. I don't know how that works. And it's a lot of hard work for Andrew, I suspect. And he will probably have the final say whether or not something like this is truly plausible. It would be epic, because, of course, it would be candlelight. You wouldn't have disco lights. You wouldn't have rock club lights. You would have candle lights. And I think it would look...
It seems like a ritual, actually. It seems like a ritualistic mood.
Yeah, and I've seen a couple of bands in churches before, and it is very atmospheric. It's wonderful. The audience are super silent, because they want to hear every single note in such a glorious surrounding. So I would love to do something like that. But it's quite a lot of hard work involved.
Yeah, we know.
But it's something I'm sure we will do it one day, I'm sure, before we all die. I hope.
I hope so. I hope to also watch it live, actually, because I try to imagine the transition between the normal My Dying Bride to this new version. Let's go like this unplugged version would be really interesting. You said, of course, the strings. If I can say my own opinion about it, I see strings and brass too. But these things need to be careful about the orchestral implementation in music, because, of course, I also try to compose some part with MIDI, the orchestral MIDI for my project. It's always difficult to find the right spot and to not overplay everything, because I want to put that, I want to put that. We can easily make a mess by adding layers and layers and layers of stuff. So I think that the most difficult part is to have this equilibrium between the parts and the strings part, the orchestral part, and also the music part. But I'm sure that you guys can make something unique, actually.
I hope we can. And we certainly have we have great musicians in the band, and we know other great musicians. It's surely something we can work out.
I'm sure. Wow, really? What I can say, I'm kind of speechless because I'm really feeling the intensity of what we are saying. I really love this interview. By the way, thanks, Aaron, for your words. And Heraclitus, the Greek philosopher, says we are continuing evolving. So I'm sure that after this interview, I'm I'm quite evolved right now. Maestro, leggiamo un attimo i commenti. Okay, now before translating, I'm reading some comments from the guys that are a lot of comments actually, and thanks for your support, guys. Urgal Noir, greetings to all. There is a plan for an album this year.
We are writing new material right now. In fact, I know the rest of the guys are in the rehearsal room right now writing new songs. And the last time I went to the rehearsal room, there was, I think, 5 songs written on the walls. So I think, I don't know whether they're complete, but at the moment we have 5 songs. We won't be going into the studio this year, but we're definitely going into the studio next year.
Okay.
And it's probably going to be, it's quite early to say, but it's going to be epic. Of course, it's going to be epic.
And for sure, we will bring My Time Ride when the album will be out on the channel. I hope to make another interview.
And hopefully we'll get on the road and tour a bit more. Our tour manager is from Italy, so obviously we will be playing in Italy.
I hope to watch you in Italy. I hope to catch on the live show. We as Il Calice, we have our own festival that we organize too, but we as Il Calice Nero always encourage people to go to the live shows, meet people, and live the real life, you know?
Yeah.
Ok, quindi ci sarà traduco dopo tutto, maestro. Ci sarà un album sicuramente l'anno prossimo. Stanno scrivendo le nuove canzoni, sono 5 pezzi fatti. Okay, there is a comment from Morton. Aaron, you have been part of my life since childhood. You play wonderful music, the best poem. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Martin. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. We work hard on this. You know, some bands do rock and roll. They love it. It's easy. They sing about chicks and beer, and it's, 3-minute songs. Great. We don't. For us, it's not easy. It's hard work, but we feel compelled to do it, and it's something we just have to do it. We have to do it. And sometimes the songs are 10 minutes long. We don't care. We want everybody in the band to make a contribution to the song, and the song is only complete when every single person has added what they feel will embellish the song. So it makes the songs a bit longer, but it's hard work, but we enjoy doing it, and we appreciate, Martin, your comments. Thank you very much.
Ok, prima di andare praticamente loro parlano, a parte questo ragazzo ha fatto i complimenti ad Aaron, e lo facciamo anche noi complimenti ad Aaron, praticamente parla che comunque le canzoni sono sempre coinvolte tutti i membri, quindi perciò sono lunghe, quindi veramente i commenti come questi piacciono tanto ad Aaron. Ok, Sidic, there is another comment. I have a request to Aaron. If it is possible to make a new album like Turn Loose to the Swans, The Light at the End of the World, and Song of Darkness, it will be a dream come true.
When we released The Ghost of Orion a couple of years ago now, funnily enough, a lot of journalists said how it reminded them of the early albums. So we've already done it. So, we can't recreate Turn Loose the Swans. It's impossible. Metallica can't recreate Master of Puppets. There's a time and a place for classic albums. And if you try and recreate them, it's like trying to have the same dream the following night. It's just not going to happen. You can try, but it's not going to work. That album lives in history, and it will always remain there. And we move on, and we evolve, and we create things that are new. But we don't lose sight of our roots and our foundations. We know what we're good at, and we stick to that. Some people think all our albums sound like Turn Loose the Swans. So, we can never win, really. So we just write what we want to write and hope other people like it.
Quindi praticamente il nostro amico Siddiq ha chiesto se faranno un album come i loro capolavori. Ovviamente c'è sempre un tempo e un posto per fare le cose, come i Metallica non possono ricreare Master of Puppets, quindi loro fanno sempre ciò che hanno voluto senza proprio paletti, e questo è il bello dei My Day Bride, secondo me. Ok, we have last three questions, quindi ultime 3 domande dalle persone.
traduciamo prima. Aspetta, traduciamo
No,
prima
se
la
no
domanda
poi,
che
se
ho
no poi
fatto,
dopo mi dimentico cosa, se no poi si
perché
accavallano le
sennò
domande, maestro. Facciamo le ultime 3 e poi traduciamo tutto, non ti preoccupare. I have a question for Aaron. If it's possible, over 100 years, let's say, how do you think people will find your music in sense of understanding, artistically speaking?
I hope they would think those guys were geniuses, but probably not. Probably.
No, for sure they will think it.
Well, you know, as I say, we put a lot of hard work into our songs. When you look at some of the even bigger songs, like A Bar Gester Whitby, that's a 27-minute long song. It's never going to be played on radio. It's never going to be played on video, on anywhere. So you think, well, why have you created it? Who's gonna listen to it except die-hard fans? It doesn't matter. We wanted to create it, so we created it. We know it's not going to be on radio. We don't care. If you feel compelled to create something, just do it. If it makes you feel good, just do it. So I hope that people in the future might look back and say, well, this band were a bit weird, but they were pretty good.
Okay. I was checking out the other comments, and by the way, thanks you guys for your support and also for your question to Aaron. But before reading the other two, I'm translating what the maestro asked, because I'm start to forgetting about it, because I'm practically speaking 2 languages in one place, so I hope to not miss anything. Quindi traduciamo un attimo. Aaron, we'll translate just really quick the part of the cathedral, and we go. I forgot to translate, actually.
Okay.
My bad. Praticamente ha chiesto al maestro se il loro setting perfetto è quello della cattedrale, quali strumenti possono aggiungere alla loro chiamiamola kermesse di strumenti, perché poi ce n'hanno tanti. Praticamente ci hanno svelato un piccolo esclusiva, che loro stanno pensando alla versione unplugged dei My Time Bright, nella versione acustica. Ci sarà il chitarrista maggiormente se ne sta occupando, e vedono come fare. Soprattutto vedono in maniera ottimale se proprio aggiungi strumenti, quelli che si chiamano strings in inglese, che sono violini, violoncelli, viole, eccetera eccetera. Quindi maestro, se dovessero proprio aggiungere uno strumento, appunto, sono le strings, quindi i layer, e abbiamo anche parlato di come è difficile rendere un prodotto saturo, aggiungendo, e stanno vedendo un po' di cose per il futuro. Quindi sicuramente ad Halifax hanno il posto bellissimo, che è il posto di lui, dove c'è una tipo cattedrale, una situazione molto particolare. Ho visto altri concerti in chiese, sono un po' rituali, un po' atmosferiche, quindi loro sicuramente prima di finire la loro carriera faranno sicuramente un'iniziativa del genere. Quindi per rispondere alla tua domanda, sì, la cattedrale, ma perché il riverbero è troppo forte, unplugged, e strumenti in più, appunto i layer di orchestra, le strings, insomma, quindi viole, violoncelli, violini, eccetera, quindi per completare l'arco, anche perché comunque, come ben sai, maestro Rocia hanno un violinista già, quindi andrebbero a completare quel lato.
Invece l'evoluzione e l'involuzione quanto potrebbero accarezzare i neuroni dell'artista Aaron?
Okay, so the maestro is asking about, of course, My Time Bride are around a few years now. So he wants to know if you can, like 30 years, 32, 90, if I'm not mistaken. If can you tell us the evolution of your human being, yourself as musician, during those years when My Time Bright formed, and also yourself, your approach to the music? It changed during the years, and what were your ambitions at the beginning? And if you have something, some memories that you want to share about the first part of your career that maybe you want to say, this is the question of the my instruction. The first part.
Yeah, when we created the band, even though death metal was a big scene, we didn't want to do pure death metal because I liked a lot of doom and death, and Calvin and Andrew liked a lot of death and a bit of doom, and I also liked some gothic stuff. So we knew we were going to create a band that had elements of different genres, and that would have been or could have been quite negative really, because the death metal fans could have hated us because there was too much doom. The doom metal fans could have hated us because there was too much death metal. But we seemed to get the balance just right, and everybody seemed to like us, which was wonderful. And because of my love of poetry, the lyrics were very different to everybody else's lyrics, and the artwork was very different. And so I think when My Dying Bride was launched into the public domain, people were surprised at what we were doing, because it was everything was unusual. Nobody wrote lyrics like this. Nobody did artwork like this. It was unusual. And we always wanted to do that. And we weren't in it for the money and the chicks and the fame, because you don't call your band My Dying Bride and write 10-minute songs in Latin if you want to be rich and famous. It doesn't work like that. We weren't interested about being rich and famous. We had to create something as a unit that meant something to us. And if it meant something to us, it would probably mean something to other people too. And so we really, really put our heart and soul into everything we created. Every single thing we release has been almost examined by everybody to make sure that it is the full expression of My Dying Bride. And we've been doing that since the very first record. When we signed to Peaceville Records and we met Hammy and the other guys from the record label, they were surprised at how mature we were. We were quite young guys back then, 32 years ago. And I think a lot of guys who are young in a rock band, you know, it's Jack Daniels and it's dope and it's, you know, it's crazy shit. We just weren't like that. We drank tea and we spoke politely and we didn't smash up hotel rooms. And Hammy liked that. Hammy and the fans thought My Dying Bride were doing interesting stuff, something a little bit high on a higher level than other bands maybe. And we've just stuck with that. You know, over the years, as life throws different obstacles at you, you turn those obstacles into something creative and it becomes part of your canon, your workload. When I look back at My Dying Bride albums, I can see how I was feeling then. I remember how I felt on that album. I remember where I was doing this album, what my feelings were, how old I was, what I was going through at that time, even relationships. They are all written on all these albums. It's my history, it's Andrew's history, it's the history of the people who were on the journey with us. There's only myself and Andrew who have remained. But it's not just a catalogue of songs, it's a catalogue of emotions from when I was 20 to now when I'm 53. And what we write now will be reflection of how we're living our lives right now. And so when I look back at the album that comes out next year, 2023, if we're still here in 10 years' time, I will look back at the 2023 album and I'll know how I was feeling at that point because it's written right there. I just have to read the lyrics and listen to the music. That's how personal it is for us. We can't write stupid 3-minute songs for the fans, for the radio, for the record label. Peaceville let us do anything. And luckily, when we moved to Nuclear Blast, a lot of fans were expecting My Dying Bride to be told by Nuclear Blast, can you write some radio-friendly songs? Nuclear Blast weren't interested in that shit. They told us, you can write anything you like. We're signing My Dying Bride because we love what you do. Just carry on doing it. And that is artistic freedom a lot of bands don't get. A lot of bands have management. We don't have any management. Myself and Andrew have always managed the band. We have not got a manager. Bands have a manager to tell them what to do, and they have a record label to tell them what to do. You shouldn't have these people telling you what to do. You should do what you want to do. It's important. And we do what we do. And as soon as someone tells us what to do, we either stop working with them or we stop the band, because that's not how My Dying Bride operates. It's a very personal band, and it will always be that. It's mine. My history is written in everything I've done. And that is how I will continue to write.
Allora, prima di tradurre,
Sì.
leggiamo le 2 domande di Starting Fire, poi facciamo le ultime 2 domande, cioè facciamo prima le 2 domande di Starting Fire, traduzione di tutto, poi le ultime 2 domande.
Okay, yeah, we are like moderating the chat because there are too many questions from your side. So we are just organizing everything just to not keep anyone without your own answer to their own question, because we try to interact a lot with the guys that are watching our channel, also the fans, because without them we are not doing this. We are also
che ricordiamo che proprio Veronica è una fan sfegatata di My Dying Bride.
So just before that, guys, translating what Aaron said, and now we get to your question, and after your question we will get with the last question for Aaron. So thanks for your patience, by the way, and thank you, Aaron, for your patience too, and really glad that you are answering in so much deep depth this maybe simple question that we are making to you. So thank you very much, Aaron.
Pleasure.
Allora, la questione dell'evoluzione e dell'evoluzione di My Dying Bride. Praticamente loro hanno sempre lavorato in una certa maniera, conservando artisticità e libertà artistica, non avendo mai avuto management o etichette che dicono loro cosa fare. Sia con la Peaceville che con la Nuclear Blast hanno avuto sempre una totalità e di libertà artistica. Loro stessi marchiano a fuoco la loro vita attraverso questi album. Infatti lui saprà benissimo, se guarda indietro nel tempo, quell'album a che periodo si riferisce, quell'altro album a che tipo si riferisce. Non sono mai stati conformi all'attitudine, tra virgolette, rock del gruppo che si ubriacava, sfasciava gli hotel, eccetera. Loro hanno sempre voluto comportarsi come volevano loro, nella modalità che volevano loro, parlando in maniera come dicevano loro, unendo il doom al death metal. Questo infischiandosene di essere radio friendly, infischiandosene di tutto ciò che poteva comportare conformarsi ad una situazione che a loro non apparteneva. Loro erano, mentre gli altri, per esempio, fanno riferimento, mentre gli altri bevevano Jack Daniels, noi bevevamo il tè alle 5 del pomeriggio, esempio. Quindi l'evoluzione, la devoluzione, la decostruzione e la costruzione di My Dying Bride sono siglati e marchiati all'interno di ogni disco. Cioè lui ti sa dire anche oggi, prendendo qualsiasi disco loro, come si sentiva, che tipo di sensazioni aveva e come si è comportato in quel determinato periodo di tempo. E quindi questo è molto importante. Quindi la sua evoluzione, la sua storia è presente nei dischi, e soprattutto, siccome lui e Andrew sono gli unici rimasti della formazione originale, loro sono i due a portare avanti.
Perché sono gli altri non ci sono più, sì.
E quindi lui parte dal fatto che hanno avuto sempre la fortuna di fare quelle cose come dicevano loro, come volevano loro, e dice sicuramente se volevamo diventare ricchi e famosi non facevamo canzoni di 10 minuti cantate in latino, ma parlavamo di situazioni un po' più frivole. Ecco, ho cercato comunque di tradurre alla meglio. Lui ha fatto ovviamente discorsi più aulici, ma
perché
io sono io, insomma.
Le 3 band, secondo il mio modesto parere, che fanno arte attualmente sono My Dying Bride, Ulver e Massive Attack.
Sì,
cioè, sono queste 3 band che proprio fanno arte totalmente. Prego, le domande di Starting Fire, perché
okay, ce lo dico un attimo. Allora, so for the maestro, the top 3 bands that are making art, not only music, are of course My Dying Bride, Massive Attack, and Ulver. I just want to let you know his huge appreciation to your project.
Tre quadri.
I'm specifying this because maybe you can hear
proprio tre
the
quadri
other
dopo la
names,
date.
and so you say, oh, I'm not saying that during my answer. So just to clarify that part. Okay, let's go back to the question of the people. Starting fire again with the two interesting questions and try to translate.
Okay.
I hope that this question is not already make it from the guys. Your lyrics are have a lot of poetry and, come posso dire, maestosi, majestic and poetic. Aaron, you are the only one that are writing the lyrics, or there is also the contribution of other members? Only Aaron.
Yeah.
And about the place where you write music, you partially answer. And if I'm not correct, you usually write lyrics listening to music, drinking a glass of wine, and start writing. So Veronica già l'ha risposto all'inizio dell'intervista, quindi puoi andare indietro quando finisce questa intervista e te la riguardi. Ha fatto proprio tutta la descrizione dettagliata. The second part of this question is there is also a spiritual context, a spiritual situation in your lyrics. Of course, partially you answered earlier in our live stream. So if you want to add something to this section, to the guys that asked you the more spiritual side of My Dying Bride.
Yeah, there's definitely underlying spirituality going on with My Dying Bride. You know, I live in the Western world, and the Bible is obviously the most popular reading matter for a lot of people. My mother was Irish, and she wasn't so religious, but the rest of the Irish family are very religious. And I never really got on board with religion. I can understand why it's here. And I can understand why religion helps some people get through their life, because life can be tough. And if religion is going to help you live your life, then that's absolutely fine. And I've touched on various, I don't know, gods and spirits and what have you. And I do think there must be something more to just, you know, this flesh and blood. There must be something else. Do we have a soul? I think we do have a soul, but not necessarily the sort of soul that may be described in theological works. I think it's something else. I think it's more natural. And I just think getting the words correct to the correct piece of music, if you can match the words and the music together, then something spiritual happens. And music can change people's lives. And it can't be just because it's a cool tune and some nice words. There's got to be something else there. And I think when I write, some of the lines I write, you know, the hairs stand up on the back of my neck, and it feels like maybe someone's watching over my shoulder. And I know there isn't, but it feels haunting sometimes when I write. And I can feel that when I sing some of the songs with those lyrics in them. I get that same weird emotional pull, which no one else in the room's probably feeling. Or, well, maybe some of them will be. Yet you have to put your heart and soul into your words for them to be appreciated by everybody, because I can write rock and roll lyrics. You know, I've done it a few times actually, and it's quite good fun. It's very easy, and it's a good laugh. But I choose not to. I choose to write from the heart and from the soul. You know, I think I have a soul. I don't really understand what a soul is, but it helps me create the things that I create. And I can't stop that. It's just part of me. My soul is in every word I've written. And when you read my works, you're seeing inside me to some certain level. Maybe that's the wrong thing for me to do. Maybe I shouldn't be opening up so much to people, which is why I choose flamboyant words to disguise sometimes how I feel. But the writing comes from the soul. It can't come from anywhere else.
Okay. Really interesting, this part. So I hope that
questa intervista
Veronica can be pleased about the answer of Aaron. Actually,
il fatto che
this interview is really interesting.
sembra...
Yeah, è un po' interessante, veramente, non so cosa dire.
No, ma ci troviamo, è come se ci troviamo in un salotto. Stiamo sorseggiando vino, veramente traduci questa cosa, perché veramente sembra che siamo in un salotto che stiamo sorseggiando vino con Aaron di persona, con un sigaro, e stiamo parlando della parte intima della band, ma in maniera veramente molto poetica, molto filosofica, molto tranquilla, soave. Sembra quasi una filastrocca come si stanno a creare questa intervista.
Sorin ha praticamente riassunto quello che hai detto. By the way, thank you, Aaron, for sharing these intimate thoughts. The maestro said that we are kind of in the same place at the same time. So, like, no barriers between each other during this interview. That's why we loved it. Because we are like talking and sharing opinions without any things that are stopping us to do it. Really, the flow is really natural. And I love this kind of situation.
Figo.
Facciamo un attimo le domande tutti quanti.
Sì.
Allora, Dennis Sampson, tell us about your contribution to the songs Cancer War by The Late Misery. What was it like for you sing such words, knowing that will be also helping to raise fund for a good cause? And just before Aaron is answering, we want to say that in the description there is our merchandise from Il Calice Nero, and we also raise funds to the breast cancer in Italy. So if you guys want to support the channel and support those organizations, in the description there is the link, or via email, our email, that is this one. Also in the description you can of course purchase our own merchandise. Io ho detto fate il merchandising che viene dato in beneficenza, maestro.
Non ho capito cos'è?
The Cancer song came about when a good friend of mine, a Greek friend, Vas, got in touch because he knew a young man who was dying of cancer, and they managed to record his voice while he was still alive, but he was very ill and it sounded painful and it was awful to listen to be honest. He was also a big fan of My Dying Bride, and Vas knew what I'd been through with my daughter. She had cancer when she was 5 years old. And that was a tough couple of years we had to live through because I thought she was going to die. And that was a horrible, horrible, horrible experience. And so when Vas got in touch and said, do you think you would be able to put some guest vocals on this Cancer Worm song by the band Daylight Misery? I said, yeah, of course, no problem. If it will help generate any kind of money, any funds for any cancer charity, then yes, I will. So they sent the music. I recorded it here in my little tiny studio, and it's done pretty good. You know, it's helped raise some money and some awareness. And unfortunately, the young man died, which was terrible. I think they already knew he couldn't survive. And it's awful, you know. When you hear about cancer, you mostly assume it's an older person. It's terrible when an old person gets cancer. When it's a young person, it's a massive, massive shock. And when it's a child, it's unbelievable. It's so painful. So I've done a number of contributions for €10 for a charity that's looking into or supporting people with cancer, because I try and raise money for a charity here called Candlelighters, and they support the families as well as the people, the generally children with cancer, because I know what it's like. It's terrible. It's terrifying. And if there's anything I can do to help out, I will do that. And it's a great song as well. It's not just, you know, you sometimes think, oh, any cheesy shit is fine, just as long as it raises money. It's also a good song. That helps.
E quindi diciamo che la questione anche personale, quella di questo Cancer Worm, questa canzone fatta per i Day, i Daylight Misery, perché lui ha avuto comunque una sua situazione personale riguardante la questione del cancro verso sua figlia, appunto, quindi ogni situazione per fare dei fondi per la ricerca al cancro viene sempre vista in maniera ottimale da Aaron, e poi dice anche una bella canzone, anche una bella canzone. Ok,
quindi
last one for the
un abbraccio alla bambina di Aaron.
we are also sending a virtual hug to your daughter, Aaron, from us.
Guys, thank you very much.
I also have personal situation regarding the cancer and stuff like that, so I know that it's difficult, and we have to stand and stick together with the people and contribute to raise up our humanity, and also put soul and every effort to fight this bad situation, which is really hopeless in those other situations, as you said, for the guy that died. So a big hug from Il Calice Nero to your daughter, and also to all the guys and girls that are fighting this bad disease, and we try to help. And we hope to help as much as we can with our little initiatives of our association to Volta Lab, which is in the description, guys. Okay, last
every little
one.
bit helps.
Yes, every single penny is worth it in this case.
Yeah, I think so.
Ok, partiamo con la traduzione, facciamo le ultime due domande, non tratteniamo di più Aaron.
Ho tradotto già tutto, ma dopo la risposta vi facciamo l'ultima domanda.
Allora, io ho una domanda molto molto semplice, molto racchiusa, nel senso che
last questions for Aaron, by the way, guys.
Le ultime due domande, Aaron, poi ti lasciamo libero.
Last question for Aaron, and we, of course, leave Aaron his own
The gentleman Aaron.
Before he kills us, actually.
Allora, quale sarebbe, perché forse si è dimenticato prima di dirglielo, la domanda che ho fatto antecedente, quale sarebbe il disco che sceglierebbe Aaron per portarlo all'interno di un museo?
Ah no, non l'ho chiesto. Che poi si collega anche la domanda di un altro ragazzo, quindi ci troviamo a
perfetto. Come descriverebbe però lo stesso Aaron il disco senza usare la parola musica, ma la parola sentimenti e la parola arte, ma un'arte retro, non futurista?
Okay, so this question from the maestro was actually part of another question that I missed during the translation. So sorry, maestro. I will make now to Aaron. If you have the possibility to also, this is linked to a question of Mom Chill in the comments. So we try to merge our own question with your question, guys. The question is, if you have to bring one of your album to a museum and be shown to the people as a relic, basically, which album from My Damn Bride you will pick? And also, if you have to describe this album without using the music, but only with feelings and emotion, which emotion and which feelings you will choose to describe it?
E deve scegliere anche qual è il museo. In quale museo?
Also, the maestro asked you if you choose also the museum as the place where this CD will be displayed. It will be interesting too.
That's a difficult one. We've had a lot of albums, you know. I'm not going to do the obvious Turn Loose the Swans, although maybe I should. For me, a long time, my favorite My Dying Bride album was The Dreadful Hours.
Okay.
Just because I think for that album, every song from the beginning to the end, I really liked, and I don't know, I just felt the whole album worked extremely well, and it was one of the few where I actually designed the album cover. I did the artwork on that one,
That one should, yes.
Yeah, I painted that picture, and I just felt, if anyone wants an introduction to My Dying Bride, I always tell them to go for The Dreadful Hours. I just think it has a good variety, clean vocals, some death metal, some up-tempo songs, some really doomy stuff. And I mean, they all do, to be honest. That's why it's so difficult to pick one. I could pick The Ghost of Orion, because there is some of my recent history involved in that. The sickness with my daughter. You know, I lived through that between Feel the Misery and The Ghost of Orion. And so from an emotional point of view, The Ghost of Orion might be the one I choose, because it was such a difficult album to write. I was coming out of such a dark place. When I went to the studio to do the vocals, I hated it. I didn't want to be there, but I knew the rest of the band had already written all the music and recorded most of it. I had to be there. And I was struggling, and I told Andrew, you know, I think the new album might have to be an instrumental album, or you might need to find a new singer. I'm just not ready to come back. And luckily, Nuclear Blast were very patient. And Andrew said, you know, he gave me a lot of support and said, you know, you've got this. You know what you're doing. Just keep going back to the studio and you'll get the feeling. And he was right. But it was still difficult. You know, some days, you know, it's just tough. It was a tough album. So I think I would put The Ghost of Orion in, you know, because it's probably the album that has the most feeling right from my heart and soul, because it was very raw. It was hard to record. And normally when you finish recording an album, you know, great, let's have some champagne, let's have a party. You know, we've nailed it. And as soon as I finished recording the vocals and I knew I'd finished, I just left the studio and I never went back to listen to the songs again. And there was no party, there was no champagne, there was nothing, because it was a tough album to do. So I would pick that album, actually, because it is the most personal one to me. And if it was going to be displayed in any sort of environment, gosh, I don't know. Well, when they finished in Barcelona, if ever they finish the Sagrada Familia, they should display it in there. It's not a museum. It's the most amazing space. And hopefully one day when it's finished, put The Ghost of Orion in there.
We hope, actually.
Perché
quindi
io
non è proprio un
sceglierei...
museo, ma dove c'è la Sagrada Famiglia a Barcellona. Perché lui ha fatto una sorta di parlato comunque di cose personali, perché prima ha scelto The Dreadful Hours, dove lui ha fatto la copertina perché rappresenta appunto una sorta di vademecum dei My Dying Bride, però dice che The Ghost of Iron, perché è stato difficile da comporre, lui stesso stava mollando, l'ha registrato più volte, non c'è stata nessuna celebrazione, nessun entusiasmo dopo l'album per via della situazione personale che stava vivendo. Diciamo, lui ha scelto The Ghost of Orion, che è uscito nel 2020, e qui ringraziamento sia ai teammates che alla label che sono stati di supporto, per cui voleva proprio mollare il progetto, voleva proprio evitare di suonare ancora, di cantarci ancora, però è stato ultimo molto pazienti, è uscito quell'album che è uscito, che è secondo me uno dei migliori, ecco. Dice,
diciamo
non è proprio un museo, ma la Sagrada Famiglia a Barcellona sarebbe perfetto. Spera che un giorno, io ho detto pure, io lo spero, che il suo album venga mostrato alle persone in quel posto.
E infatti io invece avrei detto, Aaron, scusatemi, 34.788% complete. Io avrei detto quell'album, 1998, sotto la Paceville. 34.788% 3 punti,
Okay,
complete.
since it is difficult for me to read it in English, I'm sharing now because I have to be honest. This one would be the choice of the maestro actually for the album displayed in the museum. The 34.788% complete. Are you? I said correct. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. That is an unusual one. That is an unusual choice. That's kind of the album that a lot of My Dying Bride fans were shocked when it was released. But it wasn't released as some sort of publicity stunt or anything like that. It was released because the members of the band who created it wanted it released. And we composed the songs in the same way we've composed all our other songs. When I did the artwork, again, I wanted something a bit different, something to stand out. Everybody was going back to skulls and blood and sacrificing people on the altar. And I wanted a complete contrast to that. And there's only really a couple of weird songs, if you like, and the weird cover and the weird title that make the album a bit different. If you still listen to that album, there are some great old school My Dying Bride songs on that album. There's a lot of gothic music on that album, but people see it as being some sort of weird electronic album. It's not an electronic album. It's just something that's just a little bit different, that's all. And I think it was released a little bit ahead of its time. When it came out, people found it a very difficult meal to eat. Now with time, they've looked back and thought, actually, that's a great album. Why did I miss it at the time it was released? People just weren't ready for it, but I think it's now accepted as a normal My Dying Bride album.
Okay. You also good to know this point of view about this album because I was not aware of that feedback at that time. Sadly or happily, I was born in 1996, so I'm too young for that period of time. But I'm sure because I already took that album as a classic when I discovered your band. So for me, it was like weird to hear those words about it. But
yeah, I think people wanted a gothic cover, cemetery, black and white, classic, the ravens are falling from the sky kind of album title. And we just fancied a little change, that's all. And then
people were a little bit shocked.
When we enjoyed kind of experimenting a little bit, we came back down and I think we did The Light at the End of the World after that. So, yeah, it's nice to have a little experiment every now and again, providing your experiments don't get out of hand.
Okay, perfect. Of course, you were right about the album process, because after that, the year, if we have the correct information here, a year later, The Light at the End of the World was released in 1999, so it was 1998 and 1999.
Yeah.
Quindi Maestro è stato molto colpito dalla tua scelta dell'album, perché è un album che è stato molto criticato a suo tempo dei My Dying Bride e che lui comunque considera un classico. Io stesso non sapevo di questa cosa, che all'epoca era stato recepito così male, ma male perché non entrava nei canoni, è sempre stato un po' sperimentale quello 34.788%.
Come la vacanza dei Satilicon, che non è stato mai accettato.
Esatto. Che poi adesso invece sono ovviamente accettati. Ok, Aaron, last question for you. And by the way, thanks again for your time, and we want to thank
very much,
every people that are giving away their own time, because it's the most precious thing that they can give away. Actually, time does not come back, so sadly. So thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Very honored interview, my dear.
And it was like inspiring, and I'm sure I will go to the bed with new thoughts for the next day. So thank you, Aaron. And this question is quite funny because we love to have fun. We do this because we have fun, and we love to ask this question to all the guys. You partially answered at the beginning, but we want to know exactly what is the perfect drink to describe the music of My Dying Bride. So imagine yourself on the couch, listening My Dying Bride's music, headphones, silence, with a drink. Which kind of drink can represent your band?
Well,
I can say red wine or tea, but we want to know more about it, actually.
well, my favorite drink, well, in the old days, I would drink any wine,
Okay.
because I just, it wasn't the flavor of the wine. I wanted a warm buzz going on in here so I could write the lyrics. Because you write differently when you've had a drink. Because I have, on one or two occasions, written during the daytime. I had some free time and I wrote some stuff, and it's completely different to the stuff you write at nighttime when you're not looking at the clock, and you have a drink. As I say, a little bit of, not too much alcohol. If you drink too much, your writing is hilarious, absolutely hilarious. So you've got to drink just a little bit, and over time I realized, okay, that wine was okay, that wine's not so great. And now my go-to wine is a French Chateauneuf du Pape. So
you will stick to the wine, actually, as the perfect drink for My Dying Bride after all those years.
Yes,
Is it
definitely.
correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, definitely. I mean, when we go, when we wine is always on the rider. Whenever we play live, there's always 2 reds, 2 whites, and some beer. It always has been. And for me, just a couple of glasses of red wine, it relaxes you, and it gives you an ability to really express yourself in a different way when you're driving your car. You have to be relaxed and you have to want to write. Sometimes you can say, okay, there's nothing happening tonight. I've got the wine, and I know it's cheesy. I sometimes light candles as well because it adds to the
atmosphere. Yeah.
And sometimes you sit there and you write, and it's just not happening. You've got everything in place, and there's no ideas, and you just think, what's going wrong? What am I missing? Why is nothing happening? Some nights I've just got nothing to say, and even the environment might be perfect. If the ideas aren't flowing, forget it. Blow the candles out, put the wine back, have a cup of tea, and go to bed. So your body and your mind have to be in tune. You have to be ready to do it. You can't force it. You can't say, tonight you must write. There's a deadline tomorrow. I never do that. I never have deadlines. And thankfully, we've always had record labels who don't give us deadlines. Because if the idea isn't naturally flowing from you, you shouldn't force it. So if it's not there, you try again another time. And that's the way it works. So a bottle of Chateauneuf du Pape, some candles, and a perfectly silent house. That's what you need.
Okay, so the maestro will be really happy about your wine choice, which is a hardcore wine drinker, actually. But it's from Sardinia. He have his own cannon now, actually. So he's got.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know if you ever tried some South Italian or Sardinian wine, actually.
Not for a long time, no, but I will have a look now.
Okay, the taste is really. I'm not a drinker anymore. I don't drink like in 5 years, but I recall the memories of when I drink wine was really heavy and stuffed, strong, because of course the environment helps. So vino, candele e casa in silenzio. So wine, candles, and a perfectly silent house for writing
una
music.
domanda, la marca del vino?
Sì,
Per
l'ha
caso,
detto
Aaron, conosci il
Aaron, can you please repeat the type of wine, because I stopped with French in middle school, so I don't I don't know how to... La marca del vino la sto dicendo.
I'll write it down. I'll write it
the,
down, show it to the screen, then people can
people can have
join in the fun.
Yeah.
Hang on a second.
Of course, il Calice Nero do not encourage the alcoholic drink.
Perché è interessante, perché ci sono dei vini pregiati molto particolari.
No, ho detto vino francese particolare che io... Il francese
Vino
l'ho
francese.
finito...
Ah, vedi, quindi France. Ok.
Aspetta, ce lo sto trovando.
Sì, no, chi ha fatto?
I don't know if you'll be able to read that.
Aspetta.
Hang on.
Sì, al tempo il cellulare.
Chateau du Pape. Is this correct? Chateau du Pape. Ok.
Perfect, thank you. Conosci il Chianti?
The maestro asked your opinion about the Chianti wine, if you have the chance to taste it.
Yeah, Chianti's lovely. I've been speaking
Chianti,
with
Hannibal.
We're thinking of doing a My Dying Bride wine, and a guy from Italy said he is a sommelier and he knows a vineyard who are interested in doing a My Dying Bride wine.
Really? Quindi
yeah.
Di My Dying Bride? Oh, really?
So not this year, but maybe next year, if we can make it happen, there could well be an Italian My Dying Bride wine. So that's something we need to look into.
Good news, actually. Good news for all the Italians wine drinker. Quindi praticamente ci sarà un vino dei My Dying Bride, forse l'anno prossimo, fatto da italiani. Vino My Dying Bride.
Tienici aggiornati, Aaron, mi raccomando.
Please, Maestro wants to be updated about My Dying Bride wine. Right?
Assolutamente.
And thank you, Aaron, for your answers and your, I have to say, your wisdom too. And it always at the end of the interview, by the way, thank you very much. We want to leave a free space to the artists, to our guests, for your fans and for the Calice Nero fans. So, Aaron, if you do not mind, just before finishing this virtual meeting, if you have some words to share at the end of this episode, we will glad to give you the free space to do it.
Okay. So, obviously, My Dying Bride have not played live for some time. We have played in Leeds and London last year, and but it's not much. It's not enough, and we've had a lot of problems. Going right back to 2017, when my daughter was diagnosed with cancer, right up to 3 weeks ago, there's been a lot of problems within My Dying Bride, personal health issues, and these are private matters. It's difficult to talk about them to the public, but we've had to cancel quite a lot of shows through no choice of our own. We couldn't avoid them. So we apologize. We have not been in Europe for 5 years, so that's crazy. Everybody's feeling good now, and hopefully 2023 must be a better year, right? It's got to be. We should be out with a new album, a lovely Italian wine, and hopefully back on the road again. It's been a long time since we've seen the people who spend their hard-earned money to come and see My Dying Bride. Been too long. Next year we'll be back. We will definitely be back next year, and I apologize for cancelled shows. It was out of our hands, but hopefully 2023, big year for My Dying Bride. Keep my fingers crossed.
And we hope to meet you, Aaron, in Italy during this 2023 in person, just to share the moment and also to see you live, because you are one of my in the dream list of concert to have to be seen, in my own opinion.
Well, as I mentioned, the tour manager is Italian, so Italy will be on the tour.
I hope. I hope so.
Eh,
And so we really look
traduzione?
forward about it. Praticamente dice che si scusa con tutte le persone che non ha potuto incontrare in questi anni perché dal 2017 i My Time Bride hanno avuto problemi personali che hanno forzato loro di cancellare gli show. Ma il 2023 sarà il loro anno. Il Dino dei My Time Bride, nuovo album e
Quindi
possibilmente tour.
a special wish for all Aaron. Thank you.
Thank you very
Aaron.
much.
And I don't know which time it is in England, but it's kind of late here. But it was really inspirational and fun night to have together. Thank you very much, and
Un
we
grande in
hope
bocca
to
al
see
lupo per
you
la
on the
vita
road.
privata
And
di Aaron.
good luck for your life and your daughter and stuff from Italy with love. And yeah. If you want to what I'm saying, no, sorry, a little bit confusing between languages. Thank you very much for this opportunity to give in this episode, and thank you to all the people from Italy, outside Italy, that are supporting Il Calice Nero. In description, all the stuff about us, and of course follow by the Bright, buy records and support the bands. And
Poi
we
anche un
have
in bocca al lupo, un in bocca al
già l'ho
lupo
detto.
proprio della vita privata per Aaron, veramente da
And we
da
hope
tutto il
that
Calice
your
Nero.
personal stuff can be fixed as soon as possible, Aaron. So thank you very much, and have a good night.
Cool. Cheers, everybody. Thank you. See you on
Cheers,
the road
and
next year.
Thank you.
Good
see
night.
you on the road.
Ciao
Thank you,
Aaron.
Aaron. Bye bye.
Cheers. Bye bye.
Cheers. Praticamente abbiamo avuto anche Aaron dei Madame Bride. Maestro,
Allora, ragazzi,
ti posso lasciare un minuto a fare un monologo perché devo assolutamente fare una cosa a volo perché se
devo
no
andare in bagno.
no, a
Allora,
parte il bagno, no, devo dare da mangiare ai miei gatti che mi stanno miagolando nel microfono da 3 ore.
ragazzi, questo è il Calice Nero, questo per
Arrivo
farvi capire.
subito.
Sì, prego, prego. È
Arrivo
proprio per
subito.
farvi entrare
Vai.
all'interno del canale. Allora, oggi abbiamo avuto ragazzi Might and Bride. Allora, prima di tutto ringrazio tutti i ragazzi. Mi vedete con il telefonino perché ho avuto problemi con il collegamento di StreamYard, quindi mi vedete in questa modalità. Si ritorna appunto alla prossima puntata a modalità normale. Comunque oggi abbiamo avuto uno dei gruppi più eleganti, più unici che rari come Madame Bride, per quello che ha raccontato anche per la vita privata di quello che è successo, e quindi veramente qualcosa di unico e molto molto speciale che ha toccato a diverse persone. Ringrazio veramente tutti i ragazzi che supportano il canale, che rimangono sempre affezionati al canale. Allora, i prossimi appuntamenti adesso ve li dico perché ce li ho sotto mano. Allora, ottobre, nel mese di ottobre, adesso cominciamo. Allora, oggi naturalmente Aaron The Maiden Bride, appunto il 18 avremo Jim Mutilator ex Rotting Christ, ex Varatron, e attualmente musicista dei Yacht Ira, gruppo greco black metal. Poi avremo il 19 Christoph è in poche parole Christoph Speidel è in poche parole un grafico che ha fatto le grafiche a gruppi come gli Emperor, come i Ragnarok se non ricordo male, quindi ha fatto veramente varie grafiche a vari gruppi, quindi uno dei grafici più importanti della scena del movimento proprio estremo. Poi il 20 avremo Corazzata Valdemone. Corazzata Valdemone è un gruppo, è un progetto che saluto Gabriele, è un progetto che va sul Martial, quindi il Marshall, su quelle filosofie particolari guerresche, ma in arte veramente pura. Quindi non perdetevi questa puntata perché sarà veramente un qualcosa di molto molto particolare. Poi via discorrendo.
Ok, aspetta, eccomi qua. C'è anche una domanda
Ok.
di Urgal che dice: potete portare gli Scamash? Oh, yeah, we can arrange someone
Allora,
from
gli
Scamash
Scamash
too.
svizzeri, sto provando, ma mi sembra di deludere il nostro spettatore, gentile spettatore, perché non so se li lasciano. Si stava già cercando appunto di portarli, essendo nati in Svizzera, è uno dei gruppi che io adoro, from Svizzera, veramente, vediamo se si riesce, sì, perché no, perché è uno di quei gruppi che veramente merita veramente tantissimo. È uno dei gioiellini del metal estremo, perché lì non si va più a parlare di musica, ma si va a parlare di arte. E come i 3
Sì,
nomi che sono stati
assolutamente.
fatti, che ho fatto, Ulver, Mesive, Tech, è appunto Made and Bride. Quindi vediamo un pochettino. Però preparatevi anche già a gennaio, che si sta lavorando già al mese di gennaio addirittura, a dei nomi, ma anche delle situazioni del canale. Quindi preparatevi a alcune situazioni. Ci sono dei nomi che si sta cercando di contattarli, non è facile, si porterà prima o poi, si farà con
Infatti
King of Hell.
stiamo trattando anche in real life.
No, perché infatti prima ho risposto uno, ma non posso dire perché ci sarà una speciale video intervista, a una band famosissima del grindcore. Però non posso dire chi, ma è veramente un'intervista veramente
Posso dare un
speciale.
indizio?
No, assolutamente no, assolutamente no.
No, lo sto già dando un indizio. Se
Assolutamente
capisci
no,
l'indizio,
perché
se capite
quindi
l'indizio,
ragazzi,
capite la
veramente
band.
no, perché ancora è definito, ormai è definito, si sta cercando di definire il giorno esatto, quindi veramente dico a tutti di seguire il giorno della puntata perché sarà una sorta di puntata commemorativa anche.
Sì, ma poi soprattutto stiamo anche aprendo ad altri generi, anche per mia volontà. Ci saranno speciali sull'hardcore punk, su il
E anche sul
crust,
Doom, sì,
sul
forse sul
doom,
Doom
sullo
ci sarà anche
sludge,
qualcosa.
sul stoner. Cioè il Calice Nero non è nero solo perché parte dal black, poi siamo arrivati al death, ma cerchiamo di inglobare tutta la cosa della musica
Ricordo
estrema.
il 15 di gennaio, che
Thank you.
ancora non è stato
Good night.
annunciato, ma thank you very much, che ancora non c'è stato l'annuncio, ma ve lo posso già dire per certo, il 15 gennaio ci sarà Macelleria al Mobile di Mezzanotte, il
Jazz
grandissimo
Noir.
progetto Jazz Noir, che è veramente uno dei progetti più incredibili italici, che veramente sarà un qualcosa di unico, anche la video
Poi si
intervista.
stanno aprendo nuovi orizzonti di collaborazioni. Abbiamo un libro da recensire Anarca da un po' di tempo, che ci scusiamo con Aga Edizioni, ma sono libri comunque particolari. Avremo il Duca del Bardo a breve con noi. Comunque tutta la parte più filosofica è su
Sì, che
libere
poi
comunità.
porteremo anche altre
Sì,
case
perché poi abbiamo
editrici.
anche il portale in cui diciamo ci siamo conosciuti, che è Libere Comunità, che è quello dove scrivo io maggiormente, Manuel, Giacinto e Piercarlo. Con quelli ci stiamo organizzando, che è un portale dove facciamo articoli maggiormente. Ci organizziamo e facciamo delle puntate tipo crossover, dove porteremo libri, situazioni, cose anche al di fuori della musica del Calice Nero, ma certamente attinenti al nostro messaggio. Quindi
Sì, perché
poi ecco, ci
poi
saranno pure, che ne so, dei video unboxing molto semplici, delle parlate, delle filosofeggiate, delle parlate più tranquille, nel senso che io vengo con un disco, il maestro viene con un disco, ci scambiamo opinioni, facciamo vedere il materiale, le scene, la musica underground, c'è tanta carne a cuocere, amici, c'è tanta carne a cuocere,
sì,
solamente
perché
se ci
poi andremo
seguite
anche.
saprete le cose nuove.
Sì, perché poi ci saranno anche registri horror, ritorneranno, si sta cercando di vedere con scultori, con poeti, con veramente situazioni, per quello che la parola arte a 360 gradi, proprio per quello che poi vedrete proprio sull'etichetta l'arte produce, che quando inizierà appunto il 2023, vedrete perché, andando avanti col tempo, perché si chiama l'arte produce. Per quale motivo viene molte volte messo nei post arte 360 gradi, lo vedrete anche nel canale, perché il canale va a espandersi, non va a immagazzinarsi solo su un settore, perché non interessa nel rimanere su un settore, ma di avere un ventaglio di qualità
Certo.
estrema, ma di qualità, ma anche filosofia. Cioè, quindi
Grazie a voi per seguirci comunque, amici, grazie mille,
grazie
grazie mille.
mille. Poi ricordiamo che ci sarà anche Carl Carlson a novembre, se non ricordo male, il 2 di
Esoterista, sì.
novembre, il professore, il grandissimo professore delle Moulin Rouge, che adesso non mi ricordo se
Dragon Rouge, Dragon Rouge.
Dragon Rouge, scusate, Dragon Rouge, quindi un professore universitario dell'Università della Svezia, una delle più importanti svedesi.
Tra l'altro autore di libri veramente, diciamo, di libri veramente capisaldi
Le
dell'esoterismo.
facoltà svedesi più importanti.
Infatti, per esempio, ci sta Piercarlo, il duca del Bardo, che salutiamo, la micronazione del Bardo, e dice: wow, l'avete beccato al buon Carlson, io ho tutti i libri suoi, cioè, capito? C'è una cosa... Cerchiamo di rendere un po' più
Allora, caro
attenuo
Carlson,
a noi come siamo fatti, cioè noi siamo così, ci piace la musica, ci
però
piace il cinema.
aspetta, io devo ringraziare una persona per Carl Carlson.
Esatto,
Me l'aveva nominato, Carl Carlson, me l'aveva nominato Sara Bellini da H Edizioni, che grazie a lei, ripetiamo, e lo ricordo perché ci mancherebbe altro, il Black Funeral è stato molto merito anche suo,
esatto.
avevo portato il Black Funeral sul canale.
Tra
Infatti
l'altro
Carl
molti ci hanno
Carlson me l'ha fatto...
criticato, ci sono arrivati degli hater di questa povera Sara perché abbiamo portato Sara, ma noi
Sì,
ce ne
perché va
sbatte i
bene,
coglioni
allora,
fondamentalmente. Noi amici
siccome,
c'è una
siccome ci
persona
sono
che ci ha
gente come
fatto,
Annabelle,
sì, ma poi ci hanno dato
gente...
possibilità di intervistare i Black Funeral, comunque gentilissimo a Michael W. Ford, no?
Sì,
Quindi,
sì, 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 sì.
sti cazzi se
No,
la
no, ma noi
odiate.
lo diciamo, io lo dico i nomi anche, come frega un cazzo, tipo Annabelle, altra gente che adesso mi ricordo i nomi, non per non farli, perché non ricordo, che sono arrivate anche delle minacce, testa di
Sì,
cazzo, mi hanno detto, perché
beh, anche
quest'acqua
per
gli
mail,
ha
ragazzi,
detto...
per mail ci sono arrivate delle cose improponibili che noi abbiamo cestinato subito di persone di dire che ci
Sì, sì,
hanno...
ma io non ho paura, cioè non me ne frega un cazzo,
No,
c'è gente
allora,
così, la
noi
cultura.
siamo così tranquilli e siamo fatti così. Chi ci conosce lo
Comunque,
sa.
salutiamo
I-
Sara Bellini di
Sì,
H Edizioni,
sappiamo. Ma poi
nella
vogliamo
zina.
dire, abbiamo avuto dai Possessed ai Madame Bride, fino ai, diciamo, ai gruppi underground e tutti quanti sono guardi il canale. Domani anche
Allora,
sarà una giornata. Salutiamo un attimo Veronica di Starting Fire.
ciao,
Domenica
Vero.
chiamava, ma sono è tornata all'interno per voi. Grazie per il supporto. Ovviamente non
Allora,
vediamo
qui
l'ora di
c'è,
fare la nostra chiacchierata insieme. Anche noi domani sarà una giornata bella
sì,
impegnativa per me e per Alan, ma questo non ci demorde perché comunque oltre a portare i nostri progetti in comune che sono il Calice Nero, l'arte produce, libere comunità, arte degenerata, Distro, Zin, Wasteland Music, tutta questa roba che abbiamo fatto insieme. Abbiamo i nostri progetti musicali e poi ci saranno novità anche per quello, i nostri progetti di vita personali e tutti i cazzi e mazzi personali, però veramente avere voi persone che ci supportate, come per esempio
sì,
faccio un nome su tutti, per esempio com'era? Vabbè, gli altri
Alessandro
ragazzi
Stambura,
esatto, ma
anche,
poi i ragazzi che ho incontrato allo Slaughter, uno di
e
questi era
Fantomas,
Fantomax, uno di questi era
Fantomas,
Fantomax
bellissimo.
che ha fatto, ma tu
Colcodino,
sei quello del Calice Nero, ragazzi, a me ci fate rimanere contenti perché vuol dire che qualcosa riusciamo a trasmettervela, quindi...
salutiamo i Kogas, gruppo sardo che non dico altro.
Quindi
Allora, comunque va,
tanti contenuti, tanto underground, senza
eh,
compromessi, senza censura, senza disparità e tutto per tutti,
il
senza
25 ci
problemi.
sarà la playlist Kill, ritorna, ragazzi, sarà veramente musica veramente molto
Quando,
violenta.
maestro?
Il 25 di ottobre, il 21 di ottobre si annuncerà a breve un progetto underground e il 29, il 28, scusatemi, allora il 27, il 26 ci sarà un altro nome, underground, e scusate, un
Tutto
altro
il
nome
mese,
underground,
maestro, tutto il mese.
parlerà della cover di questa band, quindi si interverrà anche il grafico che ha fatto la cover con in intervista. Il 27 ci sarà il batterista, seconda parte dei Madden Bride. Il 28 ci sarà The Magic Way. Salutiamo Flavio.
Grandissimo progetto, grandissimo. Tra
Il,
l'altro starà insieme al mio progetto nella zin Tutti Pazzi.
sì,
Ci
un
saranno
grandissimo,
quindi
è un
salutiamo
grandissimo.
anche Roberto Tutti Pazzi.
Infatti ci sarà proprio come speciale della My Kingdom Music, appunto, speciale My Kingdom Music intervista verso
The
appunto
Magic Way.
The
Tra
Magic
l'altro, c'è
Way, e poi ci
anche,
sarà
tra l'altro è uno
anche
dei
Colossus.
primi pacchi che ci sono arrivati dalla Kingdom Music.
Sì, sì,
Sono
anche Colossus. Poi ricordiamo la Global Records che ci sarà in sede di intervista che
Askio
veramente potrà
Production,
avere,
abbiamo un sacco di
l'Askio
ragazzi
Production, che è stata già fatta,
però,
intervista,
però, però, però
che saluto
abbiamo
Rebecca Collis, la
delle
proprietaria di
grosse
casa.
novità in cantiere. Aspettatevi delle interviste, come diciamo a Napoli, Fuenne e Magnan, perché abbiamo gli amici impegnati in tour promozionali e roba varia, quindi appena c'è
Guarda che c'è un
l'ok,
nome già a febbraio, c'è già un nome a febbraio che sta ruotando in tutto il canale. Non dico altro.
si può dire maestro?
No, no, non si può dire nulla, non si può dire nulla perché
Non si
ancora non è
può-
concluso nulla, quindi, però è un nome che sicuramente farà piacere chi ascolta sul versante death, diciamo.
quindi farà piacere Ma in realtà anche avere la possibilità di poter approcciarsi a questi artisti grossi e guardare l'umanità che c'è dietro di loro è veramente molto 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 bello. Quindi veramente cerchiamo comunque di soddisfare le richieste che ci arrivano ogni tanto. In descrizione trovate anche i canali Telegram, mi pare, e la discussione Telegram se volete spammare i vostri progetti, la mail. Non vi fate problemi a mandarci materiale, anche digitale. Noi
A
supportiamo veramente
proposito,
tutto.
ci sarà la terza parte sul neofolk, Marshall, ambient, dark ambient, quindi ci sarà la terza parte anche,
E poi diciamo
ragazzi.
una cosa, ci sarà a dicembre Chris Steelwork della Steelwork Production,
Verrà annunciato a
che
breve. Sì.
è lanciato perché è il principale responsabile dei gruppi come Death in June, Crisis, e nonché il
Ah, nei
gestore
Crisis,
del
certo. Anche
Crisis,
nei
sì, che
Crisis.
sarebbe il progetto post-punk proprio di Douglas P. e
Sì,
di
sì, sì,
Tony
sì, sì,
Wakeford.
sì, sì. Ah, minchia.
Eh, e quindi ci sarà, lui è anche il principale responsabile del merchandising europeo di Death in June. Tra
Quindi
l'altro sta
niente,
facendo anche
ragazzi.
una bellissima campagna in Ucraina di aiuto di solidarietà alle persone, alle famiglie colpite, ai bambini soprattutto, quindi massimo rispetto, assolutamente. Che si fa i viaggi in van Francia-Ucraina per dare aiuto umanitario, quindi lo salutiamo in maniera
Caloroso.
con entusiasmo e con maniera calorosa per l'impegno artistico, anche per l'impegno umanitario. E noi ci vediamo alla prossima puntata con tante belle novità, tante situazioni.
Sì,
E
perché ci sono anche etichette, quindi occhio, ragazzi.
quello che dice sempre il maestro a fine delle puntate, lo dico io e lascio a lui l'epitafio finale. Ragazzi, pensate sempre con la vostra testa, non fatevi influenzare dalle situazioni che vi possono dire come essere e come non essere, decidete voi per voi stessi, perché solamente voi potete decidere per voi stessi. Quindi fate quello che volete e soprattutto siate quello che volete. Detto ciò, maestro, con l'epitafio finale. Il grande spettacolo non
Il
si ferma
grande
mai.
spettacolo non si fermerà mai. Il sacro codice d'onore è 000. La morte vi renderà liberi. Una notte oscura, maledetta. E fanculo a tutti i poser di merda e chi critica il canale se lo mette in culo il dito.
Ti
Au
voglio bene,
revoir.
maestro. Un abbraccio, buona serata.